and I officially renounced Islam. Say that the rot runs really deep, and that rot stems from Islam itself. All the Muslim countries that currently operate with Sharia, I would be tried for the death penalty in any of those countries. I think there's 12 now, maybe 11 or 12. I'm London born and bred, third generation British Pakistani. So the general kind of family upbringing I was brought up into was typical of, I think, a lot of, moderate to conservative. I know you hate the term British Pakistani, but for lack of a better word, kind of families in the UK. And I guess what differentiates me is the fact that for a lot of my adolescence, I grew up between Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates as well. And I did a lot of traveling around Southeast Asia as well. But because I went to school and I was surrounded by such kind of, people from all over the world, different nationalities, I went to an international school. It kind of really changed my outlook from who I was here when I was growing up in London. And here I was going down the quite, strict religious roots. So I started to wear hijab at a very young age, 9 years old to be exact. I would attend mosque classes every day after school. It was given as much importance and credence as actual school was. And I was very almost like proud of my Muslim identity, so to speak. And then moving to actual Muslim theocratic countries. Well, I moved to Saudi Arabia first. Dubai was obviously a lot more lax afterwards, but it made me really tone down my own religiosity, if that makes sense, because I was surrounded by it anyway. And we used to go to pilgrimage to Mecca every couple of weeks. And, you felt very blessed to be living in the house of God, according to Islam. But I would also see quite Wahhabist intense elements of Islam at play as well. So I would hear about amputations and beheadings. By the time I was there, we had the religious police as well. So to cut a very, very long story short, all my years within the Middle East, and then eventually getting married there as well, and then trying to get out of a abusive marriage, dealing with Sharia. I eventually came back to the UK, managed to escape, and for the first time actually looked into my religion personally as an adult without any kind of other direction or misdirection from anybody else about what it is and what it says. And I officially renounced Islam. And I think that's kind of what makes me a bit of an anomaly, because there's not many outspoken British Pakistani ex-Muslims, here in the UK scene, and we're kind of ostracized whichever way we go. So mainstream media doesn't want to touch us with a barge pole. For some reason, obviously the left has its love affair with Islam, so they don't care for our stories much. And, they think, oh, well, you're just going to either be cannon fodder to the far right. And so you kind of like rendered in your own. That's probably why I got lost in the algorithm somewhere you'd never heard of me, is because we just kind of prod along doing our little bits of activism. Because I don't kind of make exceptions for culture or tradition. I actually say that the rot runs really deep, and that rot stems from Islam itself. And there's not many people who actually make that leap. There's a lot of kind of whitewashing and a lot of making excuses and explaining away the Islam side of things. And I think I try and cut right through that.
Which probably means at some level you're in danger, because there's enough nutcases out there who see you as an apostate, and in Islam, apostates are murdered. Are you safe in the UK?
You would hope so. And I would like to think so, yes, but fundamentally, no, absolutely not. It just takes one nutter to, be a bit energized by what he's read in the Quran that day, or what one of the hadiths, so the sayings of the Prophet, say. Because as you rightly mentioned, Nick, it's like verbatim written in Islam that the one who changes their religion, kill them. And therefore, all the Muslim countries that currently operate with Sharia, I would be tried for the death penalty in any of those countries. I think there's the 12 now, maybe 11 or 12. But yeah, I absolutely cannot set foot in those countries just by virtue of things that I've said online. Even going back to the UAE is completely out of the question. Like at the airport, you would get stopped and detained for a post you made on social media in a jurisdiction where it's completely legal to. But yeah, the UK, I hate to say it, but day by day, it's getting more and more unsafe for people like myself. Anybody that's vocal about the religion, it is quite a herd mentality of and a mob mentality of the quite, we've got quite an Islamicized population in the UK who are quite extreme in their way of thinking. And yeah, you've just got to, I take a lot of precautions, but it's just not enough fear to make me stop doing what I'm doing.
I remember, I think it was one of the princes or one of the leaders from Saudi Arabia, it might have been the Gulf states, is on YouTube and he's being interviewed, and he says radical Islam is a problem and it's going to come from the West because we've dealt with radical Islam in our country. Radical Islam is going to come for us again from the West. And he was blaming Western countries for enticing and for not dealing with radical Islam. You said then that you started researching your religion at that particular time, Islam. I'm presuming you probably picked up your phone and started Googling stuff because you're of that generation. Um, is that what you did? And what did you discover? And what was the shocks when you started? I would imagine, is this bit true? What about this? What does the Quran say on that? So the things you started getting back online, did any of it shock you?
Oh, absolutely. But funnily enough, because I had spent so many years in the Middle East, even when I had those kind of lurking doubts that would present themselves to me while I was growing up there, we have no access to the free internet. So you've got to go through VPN and you can get in serious trouble if you're found to be using VPN and things like that and searching anything contrary into Islam. So believe it or not, coming back to the UK and actually having the freedom to type the words, is Islam the truth? And having the internet give me a genuine response where, everything is visible was so like it was new to me. And obviously I'm very grateful that I did because it took me down rabbit holes. And as you said, I was going deeper and deeper into, well, what does that say? But no, surely that can't be it. And if the Quran is saying that, maybe I can safeguard my religion because the Hadith will counteract it and vice versa. But ultimately, Nick, it came down to, in Islam, the core belief is that the Quran is the eternal, timeless, infallible word of God. And if I'd found my issue within the Quran, then I don't really have anywhere to turn as much as the cognitive dissonance wants you to, try and stay within the fold. I couldn't. I actually couldn't. And I was a kind of a brighter young adult by then. I had studied law at university. I knew what even a very vague verse in the Quran could mean in practical purposes, and what it did do to me, for example. So like only giving men the right to divorce and saying that a disobedient wife can be disciplined. All of these things can play out very, like in a very dark manner when they are enacted in those countries. And I saw that firsthand, obviously, because of my personal experience. But yeah, that there was so many shocking things to the point where I still could not trust my own mind because Islam tells you that, oh, you've got to understand Arabic or you've got to go to some imam or some sheikh or some scholar. And Arabic's not my first language or second language or third language. So I actually went onto YouTube and listened to a native Arabic speaker translate the Quran and see his interpretation of it. And when I did that, and I could see the direct links to how you can extrapolate terrorism and how ISIS and some of these terrorist organizations can directly say they were influenced by the Quran, I just could not look away after that. And that was kind of the point of no return for me. But it's actually very funny that you also mentioned that extremist Islam will come out of the West, because you're completely right. Even when I was living in the UAE and Saudi Arabia, they would know how to crack down very well on their kind of internal elements or threats or extremist kind of factions. And they actually like look at the West as kind of in a very mocking way, as in a disparaging way as well, that we can kind of weed out and ban these organizations outright. And here you are displaying them all over TFL, for example. Islamic Relief is one of them that has questionable um, funding and things like that. And we're blind to it here.